Ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our final webinar in our 2023 series. My name is Andrew Schaefer. I'm your co-host this evening with my colleague Karine Kutsia, who's joining from our Cape Town office. I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, and a special welcome to our guest Aubrey Snyman. And I'm going to ask Karine to introduce him more fully just after a few general introductory comments I'd like to make. Yes, this will be our last webinar. All our webinars are uploaded to our training website, training.trafalgar.coza/webinars. And so all the recordings from this year and before are available there for reference purposes if there's a particular topic that you would like to look into, etc. We will be resuming webinars next year from February, and we'll send out invitations in advance as before. If you would like copies of these slides, as well as the specific webinar recording link, please just drop your email in the chat. So you can send it privately or publicly, doesn't matter. We'll pick that up afterwards, and Karine and her colleagues will send you the slides as well as the webinar recording once it's uploaded. So that certainly will be available, and they'll get that out to you tomorrow, latest Monday morning. There'll be a short survey that pops up at the end. If you have 20 seconds to complete it, we would appreciate that. Just short feedback about how we can improve these webinars, and importantly, any topics that you'd like us to cover for next year. And those topics are generally issues which arise, common challenges, anything at all that will help from a training or support point of view. Certainly, we hope it's an important and relevant topic tonight. Certainly, we do get a lot of queries on the topics of extensions, renovations, additions, and how to undertake those, how to plan it, what to think about. And we do unfortunately see many owners, many complexes, many trustees getting into hot water and to expensive complications regarding this important topic. And that's why we thought it would be helpful to go through some of the important legal parameters, what to take into account in terms of planning, the necessary resolutions, and then importantly, we'll ask Aubrey some tough questions about how to troubleshoot after the fact, where potentially renovations and extensions and additions have not gone according to plan. I will answer questions in the Q&A as well as we go, but if there are any particular themes or recurring questions, I will pose those to Karine and Aubrey as we go, and to make sure that we can emphasize and clarify particularly important points. Right, I'm going to pause there. Karine, could I hand over to you to introduce Aubrey to our guest tonight? And then if we could make a start. Thank you, and we'll conclude promptly at 6 p.m. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so Aubrey Snyman is a seasoned town and regional planner with over 32 years of experience, and he founded Multiprof Property Intelligence in 1998. As a trusted consultant, he specializes in town planning applications, as-built plans, building audits that he will be talking about, sectional title advice that he will be giving us, exclusive use area plans, civil engineering, valuations, and property inspections. Aubrey is dedicated to sharing his expertise, like tonight, through popular training sessions for the sectional title community. And outside of work, he tells me he's an enthusiastic backpacker who has explored 72 countries, oh my hat, Aubrey, and serves as a couch surfing ambassador for South Africa. So
thank you very much for the introduction, Karine.
Thanks, Aubrey. So I will jump straight into the first topic, and that is all about exclusive use areas. So in general, just to emphasize that exclusive use area rights only applies to sectional title schemes. It is not found in any other community schemes. It's not found in homeowners associations, etc. And these rights give certain owners the right to use defined areas of the common property, and therefore stopping other owners from using those areas. It's possible to create exclusive use rights over a portion of the common property. Now, just to pause there, I had an example a couple of years back where an owner built a loft inside their section and was adamant that they wanted to make that loft area an exclusive use area. So I had to point out that the definition of exclusive use is that it's a portion of common property. Your loft, part of your section, is already under your ownership, it's not common property, it can't be an exclusive use area. The fact that only one section has access to an area doesn't automatically make it an exclusive use area. So if you have a balcony on the 25th floor of a block of flats, does not automatically make that balcony your exclusive use area. It has to be defined in terms of either the plans or the rules. If it's not shown on the plans or the rules as exclusive use areas, it's not an exclusive use area. It could in fact be just straightforward common property, even though only you have access to that area. So basically, that exclusive use areas will remain part of the common property. It is just that the owner has the right to use that area. It's not a means of ownership. The owner does not get ownership of the area. It still belongs to the other owners, all the owners in undivided shares, but we are creating rights of use for that owner to have the right to use that area. So basically then, if you want to know if your complex have exclusive use areas, you have to check the plans and you have to check the rules. So there's just two examples. I know it's a bit small, but if you want to look on your plans, your sectional plans, to see if there's exclusive use areas registered in terms of the plans, you will see it on the first page of the plan. So you'll see there's two examples where it's shown. The left example shows that, yes, there's exclusive use areas. It's shown on sheet 5. The 3 notes are 5. And the other one says exclusive use areas. No, we don't have exclusive use areas. That does not mean that you don't have exclusive use areas in your scheme. It just means that there are no exclusive use rights created in terms of the plans. You still have to check the rules. It could still be in the rules. But let's stick to plans. I just have some examples that I wanted to show you of a couple of exclusive use areas. So the first one is a yard. Normally, you'll see that a section is shown with a solid line. An exclusive use area is shown with a broken line. But we do find examples where exclusive use areas are, for whatever reason, also shown with solid line. The way we then differentiate is that it will have a number like that Y12, that yard 12, shows us that it's an exclusive use area. In the middle example, the plan specifically tells us that that atrium is an exclusive use area. And on the right-hand side example, we see that it's a broken line, so it's not a section. It has a number, P29, so it's an exclusive use area. So that's just the way to look on the plans. Then if we go towards creating exclusive use areas, as I said, two ways of creating them. Either on the plans or the rules. So basically the developer, when establishing the scheme, can create exclusive use rights before the establishment of the body corporate. And the body corporate can also create these rights after the scheme has been established. And as I said, in the plans or the rules. Created in the plans, exclusive use areas are a registered real right. It can be sold, bought, donated, left in someone's will, mortgaged, and let, because it's a registered real right, only if it's on the plans. And the purpose of use is also specified on the plans. Exclusive use areas created in terms of the rules is not a real right, cannot be sold, let, mortgaged. It's not a registered real right as on the plans. So there I just showed you, if you want to create exclusive use areas in terms of plans, Section 5 tells us you need a unanimous resolution. If you want to create it in terms of the rules, then you have to decide which rules. Is it going to be the conduct rules? Then it would be a special resolution. If it's in terms of the management rules, then it will be a unanimous resolution. If you're not sure what these resolutions are, then how you get these resolutions, please see our easy guide to resolutions. Please put it in the Q&A that I must email you the easy guide to resolutions, because I'm not going to go into the details now, but just to know that we've got that available for you. So basically, to create exclusive use areas in terms of the rules, the Act doesn't specify which rules must be used. It says it can be made a body corporate may make management or conduct rules. So it doesn't say it must be in the management rules or it must be in the conduct rules. you can decide, the scheme can decide, where do they want to put it? Obviously, it's easier in the conduct rules because you only need a special resolution. More difficult to get a unanimous resolution to put it in the management rules, but also more difficult to be taken away if it's in the management rules of your scheme. It is also important when you create exclusive use areas in terms of the rules that there is a layout plan included. I'm sure Aubrey will also talk about that. There must be a plan that show these areas, where they are situated in the scheme, the numbers allocated to them. There must also be a schedule that shows these areas. For instance, P1, it must say what is P1, it is a parking, and who is it allocated to. And it's also always suggested that it's not allocated to a person, but rather allocated to a section. So P1 is a parking allocated to section 1, because if you allocate it to an owner, then every time that unit is sold, you have to change your rules to allocate it to the next owner. So that's basically just the creating of exclusive use areas. If we look at improvements to, now you've got an exclusive use area and you want to make an improvement to that area. You want to do something to that area. You want to stupid example, put up a Wendy hut on your exclusive use garden. Then we look at prescribed management rule 30 of the Act that says that improvements to a exclusive use area may only be done by ordinary resolution. There's also a portion in the prescribed conduct rules that says that minor alterations to an exclusive use area can be approved by the trustees. But there's no definition of what is minor and what is major, so that there must be good arguments for whatever the trustees decide. So we basically normally just go on the rule of thumb that if you want to make an improvement to the exclusive use area, rather pass an ordinary resolution. Okay, and when passing this ordinary resolution, the body corporate can also set reasonable conditions on the owner in terms of the use or the appearance. And if the owner is in breach of those conditions, the body corporate can say, then we retract the permission and you have to remove the improvement. So that's just in terms of improvements to exclusive use areas. If we look at maintenance and we look at the contribution that has to be made or not made, depending on what the Act says, we call it an exclusive use levy. Technically, it's not really a levy, it's rather a contribution that is made towards the cost of maintenance of that area. So basically, the Act says that if the exclusive use area was created in terms of the plans, then the body corporate is responsible for maintenance to that area and must charge that EUA levy that I was referring to, must charge the owner a levy, a contribution towards the cost of that maintenance, recovering that cost. If the exclusive use area is created in terms of the rules, it will depend what the rules say. If the rules say that the owner is responsible for maintenance, it must specifically say that the owner is responsible for maintenance, then the owner will be responsible, and then you cannot have that exclusive use levy. You cannot make the owner responsible for maintenance and charge him a contribution towards the cost of maintenance. That's like double billing, so you can't do that. And if the rules does not say that the owner is responsible for maintenance, the body corporate will be responsible and a contribution must then be charged. Okay, so that's it in terms of exclusive use. Andrew, I don't know if up to now there's some questions on exclusive use that you want to direct to me.
Corinne, there are quite a few questions I've sort of been answering as we go. I think you've just clarified it. A lot's got to do with, firstly, what to do if somebody's just gone ahead and put up solar panels, for example, on a roof that's common property. And, can that be remedied after the fact in terms of a resolution, as you've explained, to specify roof areas as exclusive use areas, which might be more proactive because it could then allow other owners to have the opportunity to install solar panels in a regularized way with the maintenance cost of those specified, rather than just sort of, instructing that owner to take them off. And then also just the important point about a structural engineer checking and certifying that the roof is strong enough for the structures being installed on the roof, or specifying reinforcements that may be required.
Correct. Yeah, Andrew, that's correct.
Okay, and then just the responsibility of trees, Corinne. So trees planted in an exclusive use garden, who would be responsible for pruning those and maintaining those? I think that again speaks to the maintenance definitions in those rules, where those areas are defined in the rules, and that would be the first place to look. If the rules are silent or not clear, then it would be a good indication for the trustees to update those rules so they do become clear, and then it's very much easier to manage. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, Andrew. And interestingly enough, a good example of that is the wall surrounding the garden. If the rule making the garden an exclusive use area does not specify that the wall is also included as part of that exclusive use area, then that wall stays common property and stays the responsibility of the body corporate. But yeah, on exclusive use area, trees on it, you have to check, is it exclusive use in terms of plans? Then it's body corporate. If it's exclusive use in the rules, what does the rules say about maintenance responsibility? Okay, but yeah, if there's any other questions on the Q&A, we'll deal with them as we go. I want to go on to the next topic that I'm just going to quickly touch on with a little case study, and then I'm going to hand over to Aubrey. So basically, we have an owner contacting us saying, I want to enclose my balcony. What need I to do? What resolutions do I need? How does it work? What do I do? So the first thing we need to do is to determine the status of that balcony. And I've got a couple of examples here. So in the first picture, I circled the balcony. We have to ask, is this the balcony? And it was confirmed that is the balcony. So I can say, okay, owner, your balcony is already part of your section. It will not be an extension of a section if you enclose your balcony. These are the steps you need to follow. Second example, again, balcony is included already as part of the section, so it will not be extension of a section. No, not a big thing of what you need to do. However, on the third example, the balcony is shown specifically as common property. So now if I enclose my balcony, it will be extension of a section, and there's certain steps that I need to follow in that regard. And then the last example, if it's exclusive use in terms of if it is exclusive use that we found the balcony in terms of the plans, then there's other steps. So basically, just to sum it up, if it's common property, it will be extension of a section. You will need to get a special resolution approved by the owners. The plans will have to be amended. Your PQ will change. Everybody's PQs will change. Your levy will change, and everybody's levies will change. If it's found to be part of the section, it's not an extension of a section. It's already part of your section, but you will alter appearance. You will probably improve on the common property. And we must keep in mind the purpose of use, the access. If you want to change the purpose of use of an area, you would need written permission from all owners. So that has to be in the back of your mind as well. And if it's an exclusive use area, the balcony that you want to enclose, you will have to cancel that exclusive use area first, and then it will probably be an extension of a section. As I explained, you would need a special resolution for that. So that's just quickly touching on that. Now I want to hand over to Andrew and Aubrey. Andrew's going to ask Aubrey a couple of questions that I've posted on the site now. Thank you.
Good. Thanks very much, Corinne. And, maybe just the point, it can sound a bit complicating and daunting. So, it is a strong suggestion to speak to your managing agent. You're welcome to contact Corinne. Her contact details will be available at the end. And, the likes of Aubrey that specializes in the space, and it's well worth the effort and the time and cost to get specialist advice, just to make sure that these expensive projects are planned correctly, are undertaken correctly with the necessary approvals, and just to make sure that there's no comeback and no complications, which would be disappointing. All right, Aubrey, if I could pose a number of questions to you, and by all means, please give examples and any case studies you think might be helpful for everyone tonight. So firstly, there's often talk of, the difference between a site development plan and who would use that and when, building plans and the sectional plans that we've been looking at examples with Corinne now. Why don't you just give us a quick explanation of what these are, who uses them and when, and what are the differences between them?
Thank you, Andrew. Let's start at the very beginning, the site development plan. Now, each property that a complex have been developed is on a normal stand that form part of the township for which a zoning certificate exists. So there's a zoning that states what can you do on the property, how much of it, height, all of those type of things. And one of the requirements that is often on the zoning certificate is that a site development plan is required. So that is from a town planning point of view. Council want to have a bigger picture of what this development is going to look like. So it will include the positioning of the units. It will include the entrances and exits. It will include the visual appeal of it. It will show the amount of parking, the roads. So it is the bigger picture plan of a complex that needs to be approved by council before they will look at building plans. Now, building plans, as you all know, is in terms of the national building regulations, and the purpose of that is basically the safety of owners and organized community. But for council to not look at individual aspects in a complex, they first need to see how it fits into the bigger picture, and that's where the site development plan come in. So it is a plan, not detail of plumbing and those type of things as it is indicated on the building plan, but it gives you the bigger picture. The second one is, of course, then the building plan. The question always is what needs to be on a building plan, and most things need to be on a building plan. We're not going to go into the details, but any temporary and permanent structures should be on a building plan. And there's unfortunately lots of myth that certain things that when it's movable cannot be, you know, you don't need to put it on a plan, but most stuff needs to be on a plan. So that's the national building regulations, normal building plan submitted to council. And then, of course, sectional title plans we're all familiar with. The only purpose of sectional title plans is ownership. And therefore, it in reality have very little to do with the site development plan or the building plan, although when you need to make changes to the sectional title plan, then the land surveyor need to look at the building plan, and to get the building plan approved, you need to look at the site development plan. Then there's just another plan that is confusing it even more, and that's just a normal site plan. Now, when you submit a building plan, part of the building plan is a site plan, and that is just a plan indicating the positioning of the units on the property, but it must not be confused with a site development plan. It's just one of the aspects of a building plan. It's not a site development plan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Aubrey. Maybe I could just ask you to talk to an example which has come up in the questions as well. So let's say, for example, an owner wants to enclose their balcony.
Yes.
And let's assume their balcony is either part of their section or exclusive use area. Let's say it's part of the section. Can you just talk through, you know, what needs to change? Does the site development plan need to be updated, the building plan, sectional title plans? Who pays for all of this? Does council need to approve that? And also, how long would this take to arrange?
Okay. The site development plan, and again, I must emphasize, we work with councils with gray areas. It's not always implemented the same way, but technically, once you change the facades of a building, it will affect the site development plan, because the site development plan asks you to show what the complex look like as well. So if there's a requirement for site development plan in the zoning certificate, then you technically need to submit a plan indicating the new visual appeal of that. How's it going to affect the visuals of it? then secondly, if you look at the zoning certificate, you will notice that there is control mechanisms, of which one is coverage that we're familiar with. That just means if you look from the air, how much roof do you see? And the percentage of that is permittable. Then the second one that will come into play here is floor area ratio or floor space ratio, or what is often referred to as bulk. And that just means the total amount of building, including all the floors. You'll understand coverage is the same if it's one story or 8 stories, the footprint is going to be the same. So, but when it comes to bulk, it includes all the floors and everything that's included in the structure. Now, typically, an open balcony will not form part of the floor area ratio because it's an open area. The moment you enclose it, it will be added on to the floor area ratio, and therefore it might be possible that legally there's no additional bulk available in the complex to allow that. If that's not possible, you will need to go through a rezoning process to up the amount of floor area ratio that you can get, so that you make sure that you are within your floor area that is allowed. The problem is, in most cases, complexes have no idea what the amount is that is permitted, and secondly, they have no idea what have been used up to now. So it is important to have the documentation to ensure that you can enclose those balcony without exceeding the the allowed floor area ratio. We dealt with a case in, I think, Seerpunt, where people just went ahead and enclosed balconies, and then there was one owner left, and he applied, and then the complex realized they were out of floor area ratio. They refused it, and the owner took them to CSOS, and the CSOS adjudication did not understand the fact that even if the trustees allow it, council will not allow it, and that makes it problematic. So in this case, you need to submit then the site development plan for the visuals and for the floor area ratio. Then you need to submit building plans, and of course, if it was part of the PQ, then it's not necessary to change the sectional title plan. But if it was exclusive use area or common property, you then need to appoint the land surveyor and have the PQ updated.
Thanks, Aubrey. And obviously the owner concerned wanting to do this project would need to pay for those advisory costs and all the steps that you've explained.
Definitely. The beneficiary of that is the owner. Typically, when we start fresh with a complex, we are of the opinion that the site development plan basically is to the advantage of all the owners. It's a requirement that the body corporate need to comply with, and therefore it is quite acceptable, as far as I'm concerned, that get budgeted for, and that the site development plan is updated, even if there are various additions and alterations that was done. And then the owners can only be responsible for the building plans, because if it's not done by the body corporate, each owner first have to do a site development plan and then submit building plans. So you have repetition after repetition after repetition. So I think it's in the interest of all owners of the complex that the body corporate pay for the site development plan, And after that, all the owners can use that site development plan where everybody's additions and alterations is shown to submit building plans. And of course, if you need to change your PQ, it will be for your cost because you are the beneficiary.
Aubrey, we've actually been asked a lot of questions on these topics by email over the last few days leading up to this webinar. There are complexes where alterations have been poorly controlled and managed over many years, and where the current owner might not have been involved with any prior alterations which didn't follow these steps, and where the alterations weren't conducted in a regularized way. And this might be extrapolated, widely across the complex. What is your view and approach in terms of, getting this up to date, in order, and regularized? And in those cases, would you suggest the body corporate covers the cost because it's widespread issues that haven't been controlled over a long period of time? And in many cases, the current owners, may not have been involved at the time to take care of the necessary approvals.
Yes, okay. The starting point, sadly, is that whenever an owner buys into a complex and he takes transfer of his section, he becomes the owner of all the issues that was ever associated with the unit that he bought. So it is important to do due diligence when you buy, but I understand that for a typical a person from the street, it's almost impossible to understand everything that needs to be done, and we don't often get lots of support from the property practitioners because in our experience, certain of the complexes where we do building audits have up to 70% of the units or sections have additions and alterations and problems. And unfortunately, in the last 40 odd years, this was one of the areas that was very much neglected. And now to try and fix 40 years problems in one shot is a tall order. But and perhaps we can now, I can quickly talk about the typical complex building audit, because that's where a complex, a body corporate need to start. It's impossible for us to advise anybody on the way forward if we don't first establish the status quo. We need to know what is the permittable coverage, FAR, height, all of those things, parking requirements. Then we need to know what was approved as far as building plans is concerned. And then we need to compare that with what is indicated as ownership in the sectional title plan. So the start for this would be to really get a blueprint of your existing situation, compare that to what is legally allowed, and then it's for the body corporate to decide how are we going to close this gap. And it is not easy. Mostly so, or partly so, because the owners have a vested interest in their illegal additions and alterations. Unfortunately, very often it is the chairperson and the trustees that have big vested interest to keep things as it is. But it is the fiduciary duty of the body corporate, of the trustees, to ensure that levies is collected correctly, that everything in the complex is compliant, and therefore one needs to make a start. You need to make it clear that you're going to follow the process and you will do what is required to fix it. And there's not one solution for all. We would always try to take as many of the owners with us when we go on that route, because unfortunately, if you create distance between the trustees and the owners, I mean, the trustees just gets replaced eventually, and everything dies a quiet death. So there's no simple solution to it, but we recommend that you first really understand all the problems, and it's also to go after one of the owners that have made an addition or whatever, while there's 50 others that is also not complying, is just not creating the right way to go ahead with the process like this.
Thanks, Aubrey. What is the implication for trying to sell a unit where alterations haven't been correctly approved and updated on the relevant plans?
Yes. Well, again, there's not one answer to that. Often and more often now, the buyers will insist on approved building plans, and most likely, and we would advise any buyer to get a copy of the approved building plan, as well as a certificate of occupancy for that unit. A building plan is an indication what you want to build or plan to build. The certificate of occupancy issued by council states that you have built what you said you're going to do and according to the specification. So very often in the OTPs of the selling, the buyer will say, this is on condition that I have approved building plans and occupational certificate. And secondly, then the banks, mostly FNB, but also some of the other banks from time to time, will make it a requirement that your sectional title plans are up to date and that your building plans are up to date. And the problem comes in when you, as an individual, is selling the property. It's one unit in a complex of 50 or 60 units, and the bank asks for it. The site development plan haven't been updated for 30 years. Building plans is not even available. Nobody can find any. And the sectional title plans is not close to reflecting what is happening on the property. And then all of that basically becomes the problem of the one owner, purely because you're not going to get the other people to now suddenly contribute to fixing the complex only because you want to sell your unit. And that is becoming a bigger and bigger problem as time passes. So personally, I believe there's a big responsibility on trustees and body corporates to ensure that they make it easy for an owner to sell, even when the buyer insists on all of those documentation, or when the mortgage bond is depends on these approved plans.
And Aubrey, would a town planner be able to help trace and source copies of all those documents if they're not available? And, you know, you clearly recommending these should be maintained by the trustees and managing agent for the reasons you've said.
Yeah. Unfortunately, again, there are very few people really specializing in connecting the dots between the town planning and the sectional title available. So typically, a town planner will only be dealing with the zoning certificate. Then an architect will be dealing with the building plans. And then there is the land surveyors is obviously more involved in the sectional title plans. But yeah, none of those is that impossible to get hold of. We at Multiprof specialize in collecting all of this information, and we especially more so in Gauteng in the first 25 years, but we are now branching out to other areas as well. But you can typically the zoning certificate, the building plans, you can get from your local council, and then the sectional title plans. I think most of the managing agents will have the sectional title plans at least, so owner can get it from the managing agent, or otherwise from a land surveyor can assist, or we can assist. We get most of this info from the internet, from websites.
Thanks, Aubrey. Would you mind just talking about parking and the changing parking requirements relative to bulk and floor area, and how that could potentially change if there are alterations to sections or exclusive use areas?
Yes, yeah. The main culprit here and the biggest issue is where garages are converted into bedrooms, living rooms, all of those type of things, and that also happen quite often. In the zoning certificate, there will be parking requirement, and it would typically state 2 parkings per unit, and then 1 parking for every 3 for visitors parking. Now, when the site development plan is submitted and the building plans, those garages, the double garage of each unit is indicated as the 2 parkings for that unit. And then the visitors parking is allocated somewhere else, on common property. Now, the moment that double garage is converted into any other use, and that even include using it for storage of other stuff but a car. The building plan states that any area must be used for what it was approved for in the plan. Also in the STSMA, it states that you can only use it for what it was approved for. So converting parking areas inside a garage immediately make the complex not comply to its parking requirement. Now, typically the owner would say, oh, but I just park in front of my garage. But those areas is common property, and you cannot just claim these for yourself. You have the benefits of the garage area that was allocated for you for cars. You use that now for a bedroom, and you still now insist on using common property for to park your cars. Of course, if only one out of in a complex of 100 do it, it would hardly make any difference. But as we know, we cannot treat owners differently. So once you give approval to one owner to do it, or you just leave him to do it and close your eyes, you must do the same for the other 99. And while it may be possible to accommodate 2 vehicles somewhere, imagine having to deal with another 198 vehicles on common property. So that is one of the biggest issues where parking in complexes is negatively affected by people changing the use of their parking garages for other uses. There's other similar type of situations where, for instance, it will refer in the zoning certificate to the amount of inhabitable rooms, and now somebody divide a big bedroom into 2 bedrooms, and you push the units capacity over that limit, and now you need to supply an extra parking space because the unit have more bedrooms. But you need to go to the zoning certificate, see what the requirements is, and see how these changes will affect the parking ratio of the complex.
Thanks, Aubrey. We had 2 practical questions. The one was, what approvals would be required to install a trampoline in an exclusive use garden? And maybe a linked question was, planting a new tree or replanting an exclusive use area. How would you do that compliantly?
Yeah, Well, a trampoline can be seen as a structure, although in real life, I've never seen anybody applying for installing a trampoline on its own. Especially if it's an exclusive use area, when the building inspector come out, I've never seen them having any comments on a trampoline. It's one of those gray areas, but if that's the only thing that you're going to do, and you have the support, of course, of the body corporate or the trustees, whichever the case is, I won't bother too much to take that to council. Technically, there might be some reason somehow, but as I said, in real life, I think we need to deal with the much bigger issue. The other question, sorry, I now missed.
It was planting or removing a tree from an exclusive use garden.
Okay, well, that would obviously not have much influence on the council, although some of the conditions that in complexes also state that a garden layout plan must be submitted. In real life, it doesn't really work that way. We submit it, it gets approved, and nobody ever looks at that again. So that would be more an internal arrangement that people need to understand. And again, I think it's advisable for any complex to get in a professional to advise them on the long-term way forward with trees. Unfortunately, and I'm sure you can confirm that, we see that each owner decide, today I'm going to plant a tree. I don't know really what it is. I don't know how high it's going to become. And I plant it directly next to the wall or to the unit. And 10, 15 years later, it's a huge problem for the complex, and everybody else pay for it because they do damage to the pipes and to the walls. So if possible, and one can go back to the start, get a professional in that can advise you on a program of healthy planting of trees as part of your gardens. And then, in future, you're never going to suffer with the wrong tree at the wrong place. And of course, now with solar, there's a new dimension to trees. And I don't know if we're going to talk about solar a bit, but trees and solar is two things that you need to handle simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, solar is topical, Aubrey. We have done a webinar on that topic earlier this year, just because it is widespread at the moment, owners looking into installing solar. But, maybe you can just give a short summary of, how to undertake it in a responsible way and the correct way. And just as a refresher for everyone, because it is springing up all over.
Yeah, well, I think the important things to consider is, firstly, is it the panels, is that for the whole complex? Does it belong to the body corporate, which is one option? The other one, and that's the one that we deal with mostly, is where individual owners need to put up their panels and then figure out how to go about it. Now, the first thing that the complex must decide and do the calculations on is the amount of available suitable roof area on the roofs, on the common property roofs. It's easy where you have blue standing units, and each unit can basically use what they have on his roof. You're not going to affect somebody else. But where we get to units that is connected, where you have double story or more stories than two, of course you have a limited amount of roof area that is suitable for solar panels. And therefore, you cannot allow a first come, first serve situation where the guy with the most money and that can be quickest put all his panels on the roof, and sorry, now nobody else can have solar. So first thing that we would do is calculate the amount of suitable, and typically it would be north-facing roofs, and then we will go to each unit's PQ, and we will divide that area in the PQ, and we will come to a certain amount of square meters per unit per PQ, and from that you can derive how many panels can be installed. And of course, once that is done, because it's common property, and as we all know, common property, the BC is responsible for repairs, then you need to create the exclusive use area plan, and any of the two, whatever you decide to go, put that in the rules that, so there's a clear definition of which areas of the roofs is available to who and how much of it, and then who's responsible for the maintenance of the roofs, who's responsible for any damages. Is it a fixture? Can it be removed? Who's going to insure it? Because if it's a fixture, of course, it can be insured as part of the complex. If it's not fixed, then it cannot be, because that insurance only cover a fixture. So you need to make those type of decisions. And then, yeah, typically we will put those areas on exclusive use area plan. And while you do that, you can just as well also then do all the gardens, all the parking areas, everything that people believe is for their own use, the de facto exclusive use areas as we refer to them. And then you can get all your exclusive use areas on one plan, and in future you only have one document to go to whenever there's any questions on exclusive use and who it belongs to and what the rules is attached to.
Thank you. Aubrey, do you advise on calculating the maintenance costs for exclusive use areas if the BC is going to keep responsibility for that or allocate it to the owners? So, you know, it's not always easy to work out what's it going to cost to maintain an exclusive use parking, for example, or garage or balcony, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I've never really seen any such calculations that I thought was reliable. I think it's a fairly big exercise to undertake, and I don't have much faith that that is a necessary way to go about it. I think it's up to each body corporate to decide how they want to do it. But again, if you have the expertise on board, you can perhaps try it, or if you want to appoint the expertise to do that for you. But I haven't really seen much that impressed me as far as those type of calculations are concerned.
Great. Aubrey, just in terms of sequencing, you know, you spoke earlier about the due diligence required to, you know, first of all, check if a particular section or unit has been, you know, compliant with alterations, etc. And, you know, if an owner is now planning to make further alterations, and we've talked tonight about, you know, how to decide what approvals are necessary, you know, would it be sensible to get the body corporate resolution approval first before you incur professional fees to, you know, do the due diligence or to help with updating the various plans? Or would the body, do you think it makes sense to get the plans all in place and make sure that the due diligence is confirmed so that the resolution, you know, can be confirmed as accurate and confirmed as compliant, you know, in advance?
Yeah. Well, I think it's always important that you at least have a basic plan drawn out of what you intend to do. we sometimes see that, you know, at the back of a cigarette box, somebody make a drawing and give it to the trustees and say, you know, is that okay? And then often the trustees say yes. So I think it's important that one have a proper sketch that you can take to a SGM. But the problem still is that the body corporate won't know if by doing this or going this process that the owner will be successful as far as getting a building plan approved, because the owner will first have to go and calculate the existing coverage of all the units, what was already taken up, all the illegal additions and alterations, before he can really know if his proposal can be accepted by council.
Yeah. And can the trustees be held liable if something goes wrong in this process and there aren't the correct approvals, etc., and maybe a successor buyer now is looking for recourse because the approvals weren't correctly managed?
What we recommend, and perhaps that's the important takeaway for trustees, is whenever an application is received and you evaluate it and you don't have a problem with it, often the trustees just write, yeah, we approve, or we don't have a problem. What solves the problem to a large extent, if the approval reads something like, the body corporate or trustees have in principle no objection to the proposed additional alteration on condition that all town planning, all national building regulations, and all sectional title rules and regulations are adhered to. Thereby, you inform the person asking that our approval is not the approval, because the trustees have legally no jurisdiction to give those approvals to not obey all the other rules and laws. So that the approval basically is a trustee approval from their point of view, but there's no way that they can have all the information. It's also not their responsibility to ensure that there's enough bulk available and whatever, all of those type of things. So I think it will be very difficult to go back to trustees, especially if it's a few years ago, and say, listen, yeah, you now need to take responsibility for that. It's even difficult or almost impossible to go back to a previous owner. If you did not ask for documentation proving that everything is legal, I'm afraid you're really going to battle to get anybody to take responsibility for the trouble that you bought unknowingly.
And Aubrey, if an owner's going rogue and doing alterations without the correct approvals, etc., you know, would it be the building inspector the trustees would call in to come and intervene?
Yeah, that is the one. That is one of the options, and the best option. Although, again, don't expect miracles from any council. It's not the ideal that, I mean, it's not that you phone today and tomorrow stand there, but yeah, they will issue contravention notices. But the big problem is that he can not only deal with this owner if there is 20 or 30 others that is also contravening. So, but it is one way that we advise trustees. If you do not get the cooperation of your owners, it is one way to go to council. But even that, we have cases that have been dragging on with council involved, and unfortunately there is, we all know there's bribes, there's things paid, and sometimes it's by the owners and by people that don't want this thing to be sorted out. But yeah, that is one of the one of the remedies that you can follow. I'm not sure. Perhaps Karin, you can also. I don't know what CSOS. We tried to have discussions with CSOS as well on it, but we also haven't really got any clear indications from them, even on how to deal with PQs that's incorrect for years, and people not being happy with it. But we can't get enough support from the other owners that is benefiting from it to go ahead and fix the situation. So unfortunately, there's no easy solution to that. But I think it's important for trustees to create the culture of control. And unfortunately, in many complexes, that haven't happened for many years. So people just have the idea, it's mine, I will do here what I want. They believe the gardens is there, so they will build a pool, whatever, not understanding the consequences for the complex should somebody drown there because it's common property. So there's a bigger picture here that we don't have all the answers for.
Yeah. Aubrey, our time is up, so I'd like to thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight, for your feedback. You're clearly a specialist in this space. Your contact details are there for anyone that would like to ask for specialist advice. Otherwise, Karin and I are available to try and answer and point in the right direction if a specialist is required. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. We appreciate the time.
Can I have another half a minute, please? I just want to, with Black Friday, I want to, and if you can perhaps just go back to the slide with the email addresses. We offer standard Zoom consultations at 1,500 Rand an hour. I want to offer the first 2 people that send me a mail to that email address, the first 2 I receive, will do a free 1-hour consultation with your complex. The second 2 we'll do at 500 Rand an hour, and the third 2 we will do at 1,000 Rand an hour. So whoever send me the emails first, you qualify for the free or the discounted consultation, and we can discuss your specific issues in your complex. Thank you.
Excellent, Aubrey. Well, thanks again. We wish everyone a very happy festive season and successful 2024 next year. So we'll be in recess with our webinars until February. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good evening. And Aubrey, thanks once again.
Thank
Good
you
night,
very much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.